Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. Like the inevitable reboot that DC Comics does every 2 to 3 years, it's time to review another episode of Amazoff's Rings of Prime. We reached the penultimate episode, the cresting of the peak of shit before the smelly tapering top as we climb upwards, staring to the dog's anus. The best thing to be said, this episode is not as bad as the other episodes. That's the best thing you could possibly say. Or to quote typo negative, it's the least worst of. The least worst of. That's my bad impression of Peter Steele, who is a musician who is sadly gone well before his time. So let's do some production talk here. There was vastly inconsistent production in this episode. I'm just gonna cover some sort of issues here, and then because I talk about a lot more of it in the plot. The scope of the effects from the eruption of Mount Doom, the actual effects of the eruption on particular things, places, and people. Did anyone bother educating the writer on the effects of volcanic eruption on the scale of what they did or what they were trying to do in this episode? The self-absurdity of their own storyline when it comes to the Silmarils, the Mithril, and the Balrog. Okay, those are production writing and also. Though I'm going to say, contrary to most of the background work, the Numenorian camp literally looked like someone cropped a scene from one of the mountainous regions in the World of Warcraft, and then they enhanced it. Let's get to the plot where I talk more about those issues and others. And I on the screen, I link this below. This is for the what was it? The US, not the USGS, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. It's their webpage on pyroclastic flows. So if you want some information, you can get I will provide some short information below. But if you wanted to read about them extensively, you can go to that webpage. Okay. The pattern of events on this show seems to be that they divide events between two major plot lines and then sidetrack every other plot line on the show for that episode. So let's call plot A for this episode the aftermath. This kind of covers the formation of Mordor, what happened to the Heartfeet, the Numenorians, Galadriel, and all that. And then let's call plot B the meat, because we're giving them the meat. It obviously covers Elrond enduring the Fourth hijinks in Moria. So on the aftermath, we open with Galadriel pulling herself out of the ashes. Now let me point out some facts, which are you can get those from the webpage I mentioned before. She, along with everyone else we saw, was hit with what's known as a pyroclastic wave or a pyroclastic flow. On the link webpage, you can see that a pyroclastic flow can be up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. The boiling point of water is 100 Celsius, okay, and move up to 700 kilometers per hour. Okay, that's like I want to say off maybe 300 miles per hour. My metric conversion is not as great anymore. I'm getting old. Everyone was hit by that should have been instantly incinerated as all the water in their bodies instantly evaporated in several hundred nanoseconds and the solids burnt to ash and was scattered by the blast wave. Every single human being who was exposed to it, that's what happened to. They literally should have exploded from all the more water in their body, which you're mostly water. If you didn't know that, you're like 90+% water. You should just not 90%, like 70% or whatever. You should, as that instantly became superheated water vapor, they would have just exploded, and the solid bits would have burnt to ash from the heat in the pyroclastic event. In the aftermath, anyone still alive, those caught in the ash clouds, as they believe in the silica particles and other abrasives that physically damage their lungs, they should be suffering from oxygen deprivation and eventually suffocate. Okay? No one in that village, nor even the village itself, should survive the pyroclastic event. Now I want to point something very specific out. Okay, a lot of people say that the lava bombs reaching the Heartfoot is an error, but is that the actual error? Okay, the eruption of Mount Doom is supposed to be the catalyst in turning the Southlands the Southland, which is a land, which was an open crop, we saw it look like, into a vast realm perpetually covered in smoke and ash, and clouds of ash, such as sunlight cannot readily penetrate. So the orcs can move around, trolls can move around in daylight. So it's not difficult to believe that the lava bombs can defy real science and hit that far away. Okay, and if you're wondering about the stats on Mount Doom, it's supposed to be about 4,500 feet high and 3,000 feet wide at the base. Okay, It's basically 1/5 or 1/6 of Mount Everest. I think the error in judgment by the showrunner is that anyone survived being hit by the pyroclastic flows, not that the lava bombs reached the Heartbeat, because that volcanic eruption is supposed to cover a tremendous area. Okay, so it comes down to bad writing, particularly in terms of something which is core to the narrative and structure of the show: the formation of Mordor, the realm of evil. Plots and subplots occur solely to have characters in particular places, or to be set up, or set upon for particular follow-up events. But the actual plot or subplot is not one that's anything to do with that event. So, for example, the Harpy get hit with that lava bomb, right? Well, but that's not that lava bomb happened to exactly that. I'll talk about this later again. That copse of apple trees. Apple trees don't necessarily grow like that. Like they'd be spread all over it in the middle. Like, if you ever walk through a forest with wildly growing fruit trees, you'll see an apple tree. You see a maple maybe, and over there's another apple tree. Then there might be like a cherry tree or something like that. Maybe over here there's an oak. Like they don't just cluster like that. But that lava bomb hit that in one particular spot and incinerated all those trees, but not the ground. Another example, back in like the third or fourth episode, Theo and that random kid who got killed by the old guy, eventually, they wound up sneaking back into town to get food solely so Theo could be there to reveal the MacGuffin to the orcs and be rescued by Arondir, who for some reason went straight for the town. Circling back to the volcanic eruption, the effects of the eruption who survived was solely done to serve the creation of plot points of who was affected by it, like the lava bombs, I just mentioned the Heartbeat, and so forth. In a similar vein, anything that could have caused Tamriel's blindness should have affected more parts of her body, depending on what the particular volcanic cause was. Right? The survivors made their way to the coast and to the Numenorian encampment, which looked more like a town that had been built at least 2 or 3 months prior, despite the fact they were only on the land for a couple of days at most. Okay, how did 3 or 4 ships worth of people build all of that while simultaneously riding for the town in what amounts to a couple of days? The Heartbeat become intertangled in the effort to do the lava bomb. Can people be written as more manic? They literally changed their opinion on Meteor Man 4 times in this episode. Okay, the last point that I want to bring up in the aftermath plot is the time. The travel times to and from Linden, from either Mordor or Moria, is longer than the elves have left to live in this show. Moving over to the meat. That was just the quail sauce we talked about. Things don't make a lot of sense on a lot of fronts. Whereas in the aftermath, we're talking about a plot structure solely designed to have certain meetings and events take place, yet most are not about those meetings or events. In the meat, we have a confusing series of decisions by the character guiding the whole thing. Let's start with Durin III and the Mithril. Apparently, Durin III knows about the Balrog down in the Mithril caverns. You would think that he would make sure his heir knows about it, since technically Durin III, being old, could die at any time. Randomness and all. Okay? Wouldn't it be logical if you have a fracking Balrog in your fracking basement to make sure that the number 2 political figure knows about it? Also, wouldn't getting the elves involved to deal with it rather than hide it be the best way forward? Since Gil-galad and Galadriel both have close relatives of similar power, at least in the actual lore, who fought and defeated Balrogs in combat. Also, if Mithril is virtually indestructible, right, contains the light of the Silmaril, and it never fades, and that light never fades, right, then even that one ingot of Mithril, shouldn't that be enough? If it has an infinite amount of light in it, shouldn't that one ingot be enough to save all the elven peoples? Because it'll infinitely radiate light. Just pass it around constantly. Or use the super machine to broadcast it. Now, and one last point on this Mithril, okay? According to the show, Mithril has captured the light of the Silmarils, right, of a Silmaril, and contains an infinite amount of it, right? And Mithril glows. We can see it sort of just touching the Mithril. The energy was transmitted from the Mithril to that leaf, for example, or just being near it, right? What else do we know about the Silmarils? And they can't change this because this is the lore they can't change. The due to concept of how they were crafted, they contain the light of the two trees, and the blessings of the Valar. The light from the Silmaril, as well as their touch, burns and will destroy and harm and kill anyone or anything that's evil. The only being of evil who was powerful enough to be mostly unharmed and bear the pain was Morgoth, who wore the three of them in a crown, and it hurt him and damaged him constantly. Okay, he just healed from being he's Morgoth. So, if your Balrog in your basement is running around a cavern, constantly radiating that light, how the frack did it survive down there? That's just his show's logic, okay? Internal logic. And a last moronic writing point, Disa has, generally speaking, portrayed as somewhat wise, conciliatory, level-headed person, an advisor to her husband, but mostly a house mother, which is fine. Yet in this episode, out of nowhere, she sounds like she wants Durin Force to launch a coup. There's no lead-up to our character change, no precipitated event that would essentially cause a WWE-style rapid heel change. So, let's get the show on the road here. There is, in some respect, this, as I said, this is probably the least worst episode of the season, mostly because not that much happened, so it's hard to find much to complain about compared to the other episodes. Of course, it seems like every episode they keep stealing or borrowing, things from other parts of the Legendarium. In this particular case, they stole, or rather borrowed, or whatever you want to phrase it as, the scene. Well, let's show the scene that they stole, and then I'll wait for 10 seconds to show the scene that they borrowed and see if you'll guess with me. Which one? So here's the scene that they stole. I have the audio turned off. Note carefully, there's a tree with a space under it, and people are hiding from the enemy underneath it. An enemy they don't want to detect them. And what does the enemy do? Wait for it. He sniffs for them. Now, it's patently absurd that Galadriel wouldn't just kill all those orcs like they're nothing. The Galadriel in this show, not even the real Galadriel. But let's do a few seconds. I'll give you all, I'll have my hands up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. Now, let's see what scene they stole that from. Oh. Look familiar yet? I'm pretty sure you all know the scene. I should have subtitles on my Lord of the Rings films when I ripped them off the Blu-rays. Oh, whatever. I'll just redo the rips. Oh, look, they're hiding under a tree. And an enemy approaches. An enemy searching for people. By the way, this is Khamûl of the Nazgul. There are only two named Nazgul, the Witch King, who has a name, and Khamûl. Khamûl is the number 2 member of the Nazgul. And he, like the Witch King, has an enhanced ability to detect the One Ring. That's why he was sent specifically to Hobbiton. And what's he going to do? He's sniffing for them. But hey, that's what this whole Amazoff show is, right? It's just they're trying to steal some sort of relevancy and success from the legendary career of J.R.R. Tolkien, right? Thanks for watching my video. Smash the like button if you liked it. Hit the dislike if you didn't. Comment down below if you have any questions for me about this video or anything in general. Please share this video if you found it worthwhile. I'm Matt. This has been another episode of Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.